living.
Why do you feel a need to be even a greater deficit hawk than the Prime Minister at the moment?
Well, you know, governing is about priorities, and we've watched the Conservatives run up 8 deficits in a row. The Liberals are now telling us that they want to run several years of deficits. I'm tired of watching governments put that debt on the backs of future generations. Stephen Harper's approach has always been, live for today, let tomorrow take care of itself. Well, at some point, you have to start having different priorities. So some of the things that Mr. Harper has done, we won't do. He's got a plan for income splitting that helps the richest in Canada. We're going to get rid of that plan. Mr. Harper has spent lots of money giving subsidies to the oil sector. We won't do that. So we've got a clear plan to help the middle class, to create jobs. Mr. Harper's plan isn't working, and we've got a different approach. I have a track record that people are free to consult. I've got a great track record of being a prudent public administrator, as does Andrew Thompson, and that's the type of offer that we're making to Canadian voters this year.
No circumstances under which you would be prepared to go into deficit once you take over?
Mr. Harper's budget this year is going to be in deficit. We know that now. It's going to be in the billions. The Parliamentary Budget Officer has given us an objective report in that sense. What we're saying is that our first budget will be a balanced budget.
You've said in the past you've promised to use any budget surplus to restore some of the health transfers. Why not do that this time around, making some surplus room, maybe fewer tax credits? Why not keep that promise this time
You're right.
around?
That was an undertaking I made to the Canadian Medical Association, that any budget surpluses, and Mr. Harper had been announcing them at that point, would be dedicated first and foremost to avoiding those cuts. But, you know, I have 2 years before the new restrictions would kick in, and in that time, I would sit down with our new person responsible for health in Canada, and we'd work with the provinces and territories. As you know, I come out of provincial politics. Unlike Mr. Harper, I have no hesitation to sit down and work with the provinces and territories. We'd come up with a plan that takes into account things that weren't thought of. When Tommy Douglas's model out of Saskatchewan was brought in. We're also proud of Canada's healthcare system that's free, universal, public, portable. But there are things that have to be looked at today, like home care, like pharmacare. So we have to sit down with the provinces. Changes in demographics from province to province. There are things that have to be looked at. So we're going to sit down during that 2-year period. But I can tell you one thing I won't do. I'll never sit down with the provinces and dictate to them unilaterally what the new conditions are. That was Mr. Harper's way. It's not going to be my way.
Right now, but maybe in 2 years.
Well, we have 2 years during which those restrictions won't kick in. We had said that any surplus, because Mr. Harper had been promising surpluses, would be dedicated, in our case, first and foremost to avoiding that. But now looks pretty obvious that there won't be any. But during that 2-year period, our health minister will have as a top priority to get new health accords. The last one's expired March 31st, 2014. It's regrettable that no work has been done getting to new ones. We'll do that hard work. We don't shy away from that.
If reversing income splitting and raising corporate taxes are not enough to cover your promises, where would you cut in order to balance the budget?
Well, that's a hypothesis that you're making, but there are a whole bunch of things that we're going to do differently from Stephen Harper. He subsidized oil companies to the tunes of billions of dollars while he's been in power. We won't do that. He's spent $1 billion fighting First Nations. We won't do that. He spent $1 billion on the Senate. I'm going to try to make sure that Canadians never spend another penny on the wasteful... Governing is about priorities. Andrew Thompson and I both have the experience around the cabinet table of making those tough decisions day in and day out. But if you're guided by those priorities, and they've guided me in my 35 years of public service, you're going to get the choices right, and you're going to be able to make sure that you talk to the Canadian voting public and say, the days of downloading these massive debts onto the provinces, the days of leaving on the backs of future generation this massive debt because you don't know how to manage, those days are over. We both know what we have to do. We know what the public interest is, and we're going to manage with one thing in mind, getting to balanced budgets and protecting the public interest.